Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and people. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Well, everyone's a special guest. I'm joined by Miss Jamie Matthews. And now we connected because, she's all about gratitude. And me, Positive Philter, that is probably one of my biggest tools to well-being is gratitude, appreciation, and all that. And so she's going to share with us about her journey with gratitude and how she shares that with the larger world. But before we get into this episode, Jamie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I'm super happy to be here. So a little bit of background of myself. I'm married with a blended family of 5. So my husband and I have 3 kids together, twins who are 8 and a almost 4-year-old. And then I have 2 stepkids, a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. And we live in Northern California, and my husband and I own a fireplace store. That's what we do in our day-to-day. And then on the side, and also not as much on the side anymore, I'm a writer by passion and by education as well. So I've been
I love it. So writer and educator. So bring us
yes,
back to that. So obviously, we connected, and you have a book about
yes.
gratitude. But get into it. Did you always have a passion for writing? Did you study writing in college? Take us back to that journey as a writer.
Sure. Yes, I did. Well, when I first started college, I think probably a lot of people go through this. I probably had 4 or 5 different majors. I was always in the communication world, but didn't know, did I want PR? Did I want, you know, public relations, whatever. And then I found writing, and writing was like, oh, that was it. I was home. It's just like, oh, you just felt like, oh yeah, this is like where all the juices just start flowing. And so I wrote for the college newspaper. I went to Chico State in Northern California and wrote for the college newspaper there and loved it, and just knew that this was just really what I wanted to do. But it's being a writer. I mean, a lot of people will say that they're a writer. It's hard to really find writing positions, and where you have a college degree in writing, but a lot of writing is just experience. Yes, you obviously want to be able to tell a good story, but you also need the experience of just getting out there and writing. And so I actually, after I graduated, kind of diverted and went into health and wellness. And so after I graduated from college, which was another passion of mine, I've always played sports and always loved just the human body. And so I worked for a high-end fitness resort in Northern California for several years, and worked my way up. Actually started literally as customer service, and worked my way up to be the wellness director there eventually. And really found that my passion for writing and health and wellness, there was something there. I loved writing, but I really am also passionate about health and wellness, and which brings gratitude into that in my experience. And what I found working at the fitness resort was that I really saw health being exhibited in one more linear way. Physical health, working out. And I love working out. I think it's super important. But I really saw a discrepancy in my mind that, to me, health is much more well-rounded than that. It's not just about your physical health. It's about your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, your nutrition, all of that. And so I went back to school and got my master's in holistic health and nutrition. And that then catapulted me into starting a magazine, a healthy living magazine in this area. Had that for a few years, ended up selling that, and then the book came. And so that's kind of my story. So I have been writing for over 20 years,
Yeah.
but haven't always been, I haven't been writing every single day in those last 20 years. It's been this, like, I write, and then I shelve it, and then I write, and then I shelve it. And now it's come to like, no, this has to get out. This has to be. This is what I am meant to do on this planet. Besides being a parent and own a business with my husband.
I mean, yeah, besides all the other hats you're wearing,
Right.
that's crazy.
Just one more thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just one more thing. And so obviously writing was infused in your profession and it was
Mm.
throughout in the magazine. Um, Take us to the journey, specifically targeting gratitude and bring us back to your journey of writing about gratitude. So obviously you wrote for a magazine, you wrote in regards to your wellness, you wrote probably in your master's program, you had to do a lot of writing
A
there as
lot of
well.
writing.
A lot of
Yes.
writing. So then
Yes.
take us to this journey where you were just you started writing about gratitude.
Sure. So I actually wrote Sunroofs and Shoeboxes about 11 years ago. And I wrote it as a way to find a different way of looking at my own life. I find that a lot of writers who are writing, nonfiction, a lot of times it's their own stories that they're, I mean, obviously it's their own stories, but it's really a way of working things out in their own minds. And that was what it was like for me. So, at that time I was, 11 years ago, I was single, no kids, didn't have a career that I loved. I liked what I was doing, but I just felt like, man, I did not think this is where I was going to be at this stage in my life. When you're younger, you're like, by this age, I'm going to be married with 2.5 kids and la la la. I was none of that. And I was really struggling with finding the gratitude and the joy in where I was at that space and time in my life. And so, but what everything that I was trying to do in my own power, and it just wasn't changing. Nothing was changing. And so I thought, well, okay, if I can't change my physical surroundings, I can't do anything else more than I'm already doing. What else can I do? There has to be something. And I thought, my mindset can change. Like, that's it. That's the only weapon I have right now is my mindset. Like, I have control over my mind. So I decided that I was going to write because for me, I love writing. So I thought, wait, what a great way to get back into writing every single day. And I said, I'm going to write every single day about gratitude. And it's not just going to be like, oh, I'm so thankful for the tree outside. It was, what can you find to be grateful in that isn't commonly something that you would find gratitude in? And so I went seeking for, I called it the unexpected health. And how can you unexpectedly find health, gratitude, wellness, joy in things that you wouldn't see as being something that you could find health in? For example, getting uh, getting stuck in terrible traffic. Most people just go to, oh, this is so frustrating. I'm not getting where I want to go. And I intentionally set my mind to go, okay, Jamie, what can you see that's good in this situation right now? What's around you that is good? What's happening that's right in this world instead of what's happening that's wrong? And I dedicated 6 months to doing that every single day. And things like, I lost my dog. How do you find the gratitude in that? um, Simple things like a coffee mug. When I'm sitting there going, okay, struggling with what can I be grateful for today, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, wow, all my coffee mugs have really cool sayings on them. Like, how cool is that? It's just, sometimes it's the simple things that we have to focus on to be grateful for, because sometimes life is hard, and sometimes life, you just really, it's hard to see the good in anything, but there is always good. There's always something to be grateful and thankful for. And so that's really the premise of my whole book. They're just short little stories, little vignettes. They kind of remind me, I was listening to your podcast, and you're talking about your short takes and these little quick gratitude. That's kind of what my book is. They're like short stories of uh, every day that I found gratitude, and they're relatable. So you could read a story, you could flip to page 120 or 284. It doesn't matter. You don't need to read it chronologically. And they're just little stories of ways that I experienced, and hopefully my readers will experience gratitude in unexpected ways that they never even thought of. And it really is a mindset shift that can really change your life. And it did change mine 100%.
Now, I mean, I told you I journal and I, talk about the science of happiness that when you actively look for gratitude, it does change your mindset. You go from a deficiency, mindset to an abundance mindset and all that. Did you
Mhm.
just know actively when you were doing this that there was a science to it, or you were just like just doing it? Like I just felt like being grateful, or did you like
Yeah.
already know from your wellness and in your mental wellness and holistic? Did you know that this was actually an activity that was meant to shape your gratitude? Like, did you know that, or were you just being random and spontaneous?
I did because I had gone through my master's program at that time. So there was a lot of self discovery in that program.
Mm,
So I did have an awareness that, what you focus on, you fixate on.
mm,
Um, but I wasn't living it. And so it
yeah,
was almost more of like when you start going to the gym and you're like, okay,
yeah,
I am out of shape. I need to get into shape and I'm going to commit to doing this every day because it's not going to happen by osmosis. That's kind of how it goes with your mindset as well. Like it doesn't just you don't just always intentionally go, "Oh yeah, I'm just naturally just grateful for
mm,
everything." It's a muscle you have to flex and
yeah,
you have to work out. And so I would say yes, I had a little bit of a background to it, but I also um, just really recognized that I was not doing it. So I needed
yeah.
to really intentionally make myself do it and be accountable to myself to do it.
So like it was almost like someone knowing healthy habits, you realize that you just need to be more of an active participant in it. Like we all know it, or it's maybe not just so common knowledge, but like you understand it like, wow, being grateful is a good thing, but sometimes you actually have to train it. Like it's not a natural thing for a lot of us to do, right? Like not
Right.
a lot of us look at that. So I'm just curious, when you were doing this writing process, did you have like a little notepad, or what was would you do it at the end of the day or the beginning of the day? How did you, make this a organized, structured thing to commit to for 6 months?
That's a good question. Sometimes sometimes things would pop into my head or I would be driving or walking or, whatever, and something would a a a quick picture would come by. Either a group of people would walk by and I'd overhear something, I'd be like, "Oh, that's what I'm gonna write about later." I usually wrote at the end of the day just because I was, busy during the day, and so
Mm,
sometimes it was only at night that I could, like, get to my laptop and just crank it out. But there literally, Phil, were nights that at 11 o'clock at night, I was like, "Hmm, I got nothing," but I would not let the sun go down or that clock turn midnight without
mm,
having
mm.
something written down. I wouldn't. And so, but I had both of those kind of days. I had days where I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is just pouring out of me." Other days where I literally was stretching for something to be thankful for. And I think that's so true in life with all of
Mhm.
us. And that's okay. That's okay. But there's still something to be grateful for.
So obviously, in the process, um, I did this 5-minute journal, active gratitude. And
Mm.
they were like, just commit the first, 2 weeks and you'll already notice. And like, so I started committing. I was like, oh yeah, right. But I started to notice like, wow, this is something habitually. I just showed you before we got on live that I had like 5 of these already filled out. So I bought in after this. When did you start buying in for you? Like, when you were doing this process, when did it start clicking? Like, I had to keep going. I'm not going to quit. Like, there's almost that turning point where it's like, okay, let me just make it to a week and then now I'm
Hmm.
sold. So when was that for you? Like when you felt like I'm gonna make it to 6 months or whatever.
Sure. I would say it was probably the first month. I would say it took me a good month to really get into the the habit. It takes 21 days to make a
Mhm,
habit, and I would say that it took definitely that for me 21 or probably closer to 30 days. But then the funny thing that I think started really happening, that just kind of gives you that momentum to keep going, is I started seeing fruits of my labor,
mm,
you know? And that's where, especially on days, in the 11th hour where I'm still searching for something to write about, which actually I would say didn't happen nearly as often as, having things to write about. But it was seeing the little fruits of my labor, seeing something, a door open or something that I know, like a situation that would happen that I knew for a fact I would not have seen it if I wasn't looking for life with a different set of lenses. I know for a fact that I would not have seen it. My eyes would not have been searching and would have found that if I wasn't intentionally seeking for all the things and all the possibilities that life has and all the good things that really do happen to all of us around us every single day. And that's where I think the momentum just really picked up and just was like, oh yeah, there's no way I'm stopping this. There's no way.
So what would be like, like we like the gym analogy. I'm using that. What was like your Krispy Kreme across the street? What was your temptation during this process to not stay, fit with your gratitude, or keep on flexing that muscle? What were some challenges?
I think the challenges were sometimes like I wanted other people to read it, and I didn't want it just to be for myself. So I initially did it as like a kind of like a blog, when blogs were like a
Mhm.
thing, 11 years ago. And I think the times that I would get like, oh, what's the point of doing this? Would be those like, oh, no one's even reading this. And that's where I had to have that talk with myself, like, well, you're not doing it for anybody else. You're doing it for you. If it comes down the road, if it turns into something for other people, great. But right now, this is for you. This is why you started it. You didn't start it for anybody else. You started it for yourself. And so those are kind of like the pep talks, or like the, turn away from the Krispy Kreme door,
Yeah, yeah.
those kind of days. That I would say that would be the biggest temptation, or just being, you know, tired at the end of the night and going, oh gosh, I got to do that. Or, all the friends are going out, or we're going on a trip, and here I am schlepping my laptop, and, I'll be back, guys. I've got to go write for whatever. And, it's just, but you know what, when you're disciplined to do something, you just got to do it no matter what. You have to make it a priority. It's just, it's a non-negotiable to really, to me, to really have that discipline. It's just a non-negotiable. Like, you just have to commit to doing it, come, you know
Hell or
no
high
matter
water.
what.
Yeah.
Hell or high water, that's right.
Now, so when you were doing it, you say you used a laptop, right? Like high
Hmm.
tech, right? Like I'm just curious. Like you just didn't like scribble. Like why did you feel like the laptop was the way to go rather than scribbling in a notebook? Like because you knew it was directly going to the print. Like if you wrote on a scrap paper, you weren't going to type it out later. Why'd you have to have the straight to the laptop?
Well, it's funny you ask that, because there's actually a lot of research that when you actually put pen to paper and write, there's actually more to that. There's more of a connection to what you're saying, or sometimes you can just get more out. But my fingers can type so much faster
Yeah,
than I
yeah,
can write on any day. I mean, I think I'm like 90 words per minute or something, with like I'm a crazy typer. And
yeah.
so for me, it was just, and many nights, like the words will just flow out of me, and I can't keep up enough. Like, I just couldn't keep up. And so I had to just and just type it out
Mhm.
and get it out.
So obviously with your book, this is a book and you're writing it, typing it, but I'm pretty sure you had an editor and all that stuff. So let's say you finish and you take it to the editor. How did you like give over your baby and say, I don't want them to change it or whatever? How was that process as an author?
Yeah, it is. It's like dropping your kids off at daycare for the
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
the first
I
time.
bet.
Um, so when I wrote the book, I literally shelved it for
Mm,
10 years. I had the book. I actually printed out every page. So I had a stack of like 400 pages, or however many pages it was. And I had it on my laptop, but I shelved that puppy because
years.
life happened so quickly after I ended that. I always knew I wanted to publish it. I always knew that I did. But like a year after that, I met my husband. We got married. We had twins right away. And so life just went like on the fast track really quickly. And, a couple years went by, and I'm like, oh, I really want to publish my book. And then life would happen, and something else would happen. We started a business, or I had another kid, or, whatever. And literally year after year after year, my book didn't get published. But in my heart, I knew that it was going to get published, but it just wasn't happening. And so it's funny how life happens, because, here we are in 20, so it got published at the end of last year. So early last year, literally, I
At
went
the
away for the
pandemic.
weekend. What's that?
So this, I mean, you had it shelved And like, I mean, I'm not going to, I had to cut in real quick. Like you did all the harder. I feel like the hardest part was writing,
Yeah,
and you had it,
sat
and
there.
you decided to do it during a pandemic, right? Like, am I
Right.
correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what's so interesting though. It's that, for all those years that I didn't publish it, I spent a good amount of time kind of guilt tripping myself and beating myself up for not publishing it. Like, wow, Jamie, you got this book. Like, what the heck are you doing? And then fast forward to when it came out last year. Last year, it was like this heart tug that I can't even explain. Like it was like this baby. It was like going into contractions of having a child. It was like this baby, this book baby is coming out. It's coming.
Mm.
And um, there's no coincidences though, because what better time to publish a book than in the middle of a pandemic where they're searching for hope all the time, and they're looking for ways to be gratitude to find, gratitude and to be grateful. And it's hard because this world is wacky and bananas. And so I have no doubt that my book was not meant to be published until it was published. And that's the other thing about, finding joy in the journey, because I spent a lot of years thinking, oh, I should. But you know what? It came out exactly when it was supposed to. Exactly. But going back to your question about handing it to an editor, yeah, that was a little bit hard because it was my blood, sweat, and tears. And but I think when you do finally work with someone, if you're a writer and wanting to publish a book and you decide to work with an editor, like you really just need to make sure that that rapport is there. And we spend a lot of time talking and interviews and what am I like and what are my interests and what's my writing style, what's my talking style, so that they really were able to make changes that still sounded like me and still had my intention at heart. And they killed it. They did an awesome job. I'm so happy with them.
So I'm curious. So obviously, this was a concentrated effort for 6 months. After the 6 months is over, did you still continue to practice gratitude? What was the watered down, not watered down version, but like, that was a very intense window. Did you scale back and still did gratitude, but just not as intense? Maybe just write a little bit about what you're grateful. How did you continue that practice after that 6 month period of
Mm.
that you did 10 years ago?
Yeah, so it did become more like a habit that did start shifting the way I saw my life in general. And so, and I think I think that still is happening today. I mean, do I have days where I don't see the gratitude in things? Oh yes, absolutely. There's days where I'm like, yeah, this day just stinks. Let's just call it a day, But I do think that training myself and training my mind to be looking for what's going right, and the glass, you always hear the glass half full, glass half empty, but like what's looking at life as the glass half full. I think that has translated into my life because I do feel like more often than not I can see and I can experience the a different way of seeing a situation that has a positive spin on it. I do feel that. And I'm not trying to brag or anything like that. I just think it's because I did work that muscle for so long. And then, shortly after I stopped writing and having that journey was over, is when I launched my magazine, and it was all about healthy living and wellness. And so I just was very deep in to health and wellness, and gratitude goes right in there with all of that. And writing, and I was still, when I was every month I wrote a letter from the publisher because I was the publisher, and
Mm.
so I was able to still write about that in a different way, but just always really focusing on health and wellness, and that's health and wellness of the mind as well.
Does it show up like with your kids? Like, for instance, I do try to ask my kid what was their best thing about their day, just at least one nugget. And so that's kind of a
Hmm.
habit. Um, how does it show up with your parent, as you're parenting, like that habit of building gratitude? How does that show up in your parenting?
Yes. We talk a lot about gratitude in our family dynamic. We also I make it it's a really big deal in my family also to teach my kids at a young age that some of the best ways to be grateful is to give more. And so, like we're involved in a homeless shelter, a big homeless shelter gift bag donation every year. And my kids, from the time they were very young, have been a part of collecting the items, counting the items. We do a big bag stuffing party, and my kids have been a part of that for a very long time. And they know that these items that we're collecting, and what, all these boxes that mommy gets sent of socks and toiletries and things like that, that they're going to people who need it and who have nothing, and that's our responsibility. And we're here to take care of each other. It's not all about me, 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 me. And my kids, obviously, they're still kids, and so sometimes it is all about them. But I would say that they have a good sense that life is way more than just what they need and what they want, that it is truly about taking care of each other. And I think that helps. I think that's an indirect way of teaching gratitude.
Mhm. Yeah, because you realize when you give to others that don't have, then you understand what you do have. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yep.
So, what was one of the unexpected, feedback, like a positive feedback, like someone that read your book that you never thought would read this book, something like that. Can like the grunt, like someone that's like a Grinch or something that wrote you and say, "Oh, I'm so happy," like give me a feedback story, like someone that came out of left field and gave you some love for your book.
Yeah. So one of the feedbacks that one of the things that I've heard a lot is just that these stories that I tell are they're very relatable, and they're really simple. And so I think I would say one of the favorites is actually, and reason why I named the title of the book "Sunroofs and Shoeboxes." One of the first things I wrote about was the gift of sunroofs. And I've heard a lot of feedback from a lot of different people about how they never thought about their sunroof in their car as being something that could bring them joy and gratitude. And then just like what a simple thing that they have this, sunroof in their car, that when they open it, it truly does bring in light physically, but also it really creates a bigger vision of your life in your car. I mean, when you have your sunroof closed, you can't look up, you just look straight ahead. But with your sunroof open, your world and your car can look really different. And I mean, I have people tell me, like, literally, unless it's raining, their sunroof is open, even in the winter, and how it just, the fresh air and the light and the brightness just changes your mood. And it's like you almost don't even know that it's happening. It's like these, just like, they're simple. Like, it doesn't have to be this monumental thing. It can be something as simple as your sunroof, or coffee mugs in your home. Grabbing a coffee mug and actually reading what it might say, and that could change your whole day. And I feel like people collect coffee mugs, they don't even really know why they collect them. You know, and so those, I would say, would be two of the feedbacks of stories that have gotten a lot of attention, because they're just, so many people have them, and it's so like, oh, duh. It's kind of like a duh thing. It's just so unexpected and so easy, and right at your fingertips, literally.
I love that. I love that. So obviously you got one book and you published it.
Hmm.
Now that you got it done, the book in 10 years, has this sparked you to keep on doing it and publishing more books? Has this like now that you finally got this baby out, do you want to have more babies, book babies?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
More
what
book
what
babies, yes.
more book babies? Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm of that two and done myself, so I don't want no more
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, how did this spark
Yes.
this journey in writing for you? Has this gave you a lot of feedback and encouragement? Now now that you dropped it in this
Yes.
book, that to keep going or do some more.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm really focusing on a lot of I'm doing a lot of article writing. Like, I'm doing
Mhm.
tons of writing on gratitude, on how to raise kind kids. I also bring in health and wellness and nutrition because obviously that's a passion of mine. But, I feel like parents, I feel like parents really need support. We all need support right now, more than ever with our kids. But I also feel like it's our responsibility to raise our generation to, who are going to take over this planet. Like I'm hoping that we're raising them to be kind, to think of others, to, see the gratitude, see the what's possible. And so a lot of my writing right now is focused on articles, but there are definitely more book babies. There definitely is. And and maybe even like a second part to Sunroofs and Shoeboxes, as this new, I mean, I'm in a whole different stage in my life now than I was 11 years ago. And so I think, and I have a bajillion stories to share about, being a parent, married, having a blended family, having stepkids, and, you know, and I think we can all use that hope, because we're all, I think, a lot more alike than we really think of sometimes. And I think that our stories can really help each other. And I really believe that we need that more than ever right now.
Well, I would love that. Please stay in touch. I want to definitely read the article about kind kids, because
Absolutely.
kindness is one of my top values, and just showing love to others.
Yes.
Um, I mean, kindness is so infused. Even kindness in my mind is infused with social justice. Like,
Right.
if you really care and have a compassion for different groups that are going through things, that's a form of kindness, right? Equity. So
100%.
I would love to read that. So I'm just curious. What did your husband think when he read this book? Like you had this book. What did he think? You slammed this manuscript. Did he like, was he one of those people bugging you during the 10 years to like get it out there earlier than you did? Or what was he like in this process?
I mean, he literally cannot relate because he hates writing. He literally, I mean, if he could hand me, his laptop to write emails, he would. He is like on the other end of the spectrum, but he's so supportive that he has always just been like, when I'd say, "Hey, gosh, babe, I want to publish this book," he'd be like, "Well, do it."
Yeah, yeah,
Do it. I'm like,
yeah.
okay. And then I wouldn't do it. And so he's always just been like, I mean, he's literally one of my biggest fans. And but he also knows that I am very much I'm pretty determined on my own. And he likes to he knows me well enough to know that, like, give my 2 cents, but know that when
Yeah.
I'm really ready, like, I'll go full speed ahead. And so he just has been kind of like quietly, patiently waiting in the background for me to do it. And has just been a great support all along, which has been awesome.
So you have so many years of writing in books, and all these different things. What would you say to an aspiring author, maybe, even in regards to kindness or gratitude? Like, what would you tell them, to like, a tip, like if they're interested in doing something like you and writing a book and just putting themselves out there on paper? What would you tell someone like that?
Mm. The first thing I would say, and I actually say this in a lot of different areas of my life personally, but I would offer it to anybody. But I think number one is discipline. And I know that people don't like that word. Ugh, people are like, oh, it just sounds so strict. But if we're not disciplined in a lot of areas in our life, then we're not going to get what we want. And we're not going to get from A to B to C because you got to have structure and discipline in there. And so for an aspiring writer or author, I'll say, I mean, there's a lot of writers out there, but to be an author, you've got to discipline yourself to write every single day, even when you don't want to, even when, you literally can't even keep your eyeballs open. Um, find the time. And I'm telling you, all of us have a little bit of time here and there, or you make time. I heard that you get up early. I get up early too. And, if you don't have enough time during the day, get up a little earlier or stay up. I'm not a night owl, so I'll definitely get up early any day over staying up late. But find the time, because here's the other thing. If you don't make time for you to nurture your passions, nobody else will. Not that people don't care, but everyone has needs, everyone has wants, and there's deadlines and timelines and bills to pay and kids to feed and, soccer games to go to or whatever. If you don't carve out and make that time literally like your job and a non-negotiable, nobody else will. And then you'll never write that book that you really want to write. And if you really want to write that book, there's a book to be written, but you got to have discipline.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, I was about to say, I think I need that because I may or may not, I'm not speaking into existence. I may get into a PhD program at 37 years old with 2
Awesome.
kids, and I don't know if I really want to be back into writing at papers and stuff.
Right.
But I wrote that word discipline because I mean, if I do go back into academia, I'm gonna have to carve time to write because
For sure.
PhD program is a lot of writing. I heard, like what
Oh,
I'm saying, like,
that is no joke.
no joke. But I think writing this podcast and all that stuff kind of helps prepare me for that. But I
Right.
understand that, and so that's something I'm thinking about. So
Yeah.
I kind of lied a little bit, and I told you, shot for shot. I mean, sorry, that shout outs and plugs was my next thing, but I actually have a portion of my show called Shot for Shot, where I get to ask you any random question. You get to ask me one. Do you want to go first or I go first?
You go first.
All right. So you get to go in a time machine or a future or whatever, and you get to interview 3 authors of real books that you want to interview. So who would those 3 authors be and why? Why would you interview them and pick their brain? And it's not like an interview for a TV show. I mean, this is just a legit asking for advice or their writing process or just, chopping it up with them. Who would those 3 authors be?
So can they be living now? Like the time machine doesn't have to be like a long time ago.
Okay,
It could
yeah,
be
yeah, never
it
mind.
could
Yeah,
just be
I was about to just say no restrictions, dead or alive.
no restriction. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant, not time machine. But I meant like
3. I know
3
what you mean now.
authors.
3 authors. Well, um, I have to say one of my favorite authors is Elizabeth Gilbert. I mean, she's just like Eat, Pray, Love, I literally thought like was gonna be one of my like this is gonna be me. And then I had a bunch of kids and I was like, I can't cart these kids around. Like, what am I gonna do? But her book, Big Magic, was one of the biggest inspirations and still is one of my very favorite books. So I would love to just sit down and just chop it up with her. I mean, glass of wine. I don't know. Maybe she drinks whiskey. I'll tea. I don't care. Whatever she wants, I am all in. I just would love. I mean, she does talk about discipline and about writing all the time, but I would just love to just be in her space for a little while, just because I feel like she's probably a really cool cat. You know, I don't have any like really deep like questions about life or anything like that for her. I just wanted to be in her space because I think that she is pretty awesome. Um, Thich Nhat Hanh. I mean, I could definitely spend some time and just probably again be in the presence and just see where such inspiration can come from. Um, I mean, just life changing words. Um, I think I'd be in awe. I'd probably be doing what I'm doing right now is just being like, just speak and I'll just listen. Um, and then Maya Angelou. I mean, come on. I mean, please. I would be so intimidated to interview her. I probably would not have anything to say, but her work and the way she articulates anything that she writes or speaks is just like it moves me to tears every time, every time. So those would be my 3. They're very all over the place, but those would be my 3 for sure. If I could put them in my back pocket for a couple hours, that would be amazing.
It's very powerful too. The books and things that they wrote. I mean, it's just be like,
Oh,
wow, how did you? I mean, I'm thinking about Maya Angelou. Like, hear about her background of trauma and how terrible her life was.
right.
To come and have such, I guess, a healing for other people with her words. That's crazy because she literally had a very abusive upbringing,
Yes.
and to turn that into power in words is very like that's probably one of the most powerful things I could think of. I
Yeah.
kind of like stories, not like it. Like I hope anyone has stories like that, but that's so empowering when you hear people that have really
Mhm.
hard times and they come out and then they just take that pain and they make it into such beautiful words.
Beautiful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's where I think, especially with her, like, the inspiration of, like, how?
Mm,
How could you could have so easily gone down the
mhm.
rabbit you could have gone in a whole different direction in your life, and look what you turned terrible into absolute triumph, and how the heck did you do that? And that yeah, I'm with you. I obviously, I don't want anyone to have that kind of trauma or, childhood
Yeah.
or upbringing, but that is those people are inspirations for sure,
Excellent.
for sure.
All right, what's your question for me?
Okay, your question. Okay. Um, if you okay, well, you put me on the spot here. Hold on a second here. Let me think about this. If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self,
Okay.
what is one thing that you would like knowing what you know now,
Mm-hmm.
like taking where you said, I think you said you're 37, right?
Yeah.
So taking your 37 years of knowledge and plopping it back into your 18-year-old self, what's one thing that you would tell that 18-year-old self, and what thing would you do differently at that time period in your life?
So okay, I got some options and some ideas, but I will do a caveat that I watch all those movies and the butterfly effect. And like I
Oh yeah.
literally don't want to change anything because then like I wouldn't be here in this space.
Right.
I probably wouldn't even have this podcast. So I'd be like really, really scared to even touch anything in my past. You know what I'm saying? Like, like
True.
I'd be like that thing where like you go in a time, like I saw the show, like, I don't know, you go in a time machine and I'd be scared to touch anything. Like if I move this beer can or whatever, it'll change the
Right.
trajectory of the whole world or whatever.
Totally. Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
So
I know.
that with that not being said though, and I could give myself advice. I was just talking to a bunch of my friends the other day, and I wanted to let them know like this phase in your life is really not that hard. Like as you get later on in life, right?
Yes.
Like high
Yeah.
school was cake. I wish I could just tell myself, like, yo, when you're young, this is cake. Like this is
Totally.
like, yes, you're struggling with your identity or you're struggling, you might not be able to get girls, you're not confident, all these things that you think are like the biggest deal in the world, right? And then you look back in a time machine, you're like, that's a joke. Like homework was easy, school was easy. That was cake.
Mhm.
I would have got straight A's if I got this brain right now. Like I was just
Totally.
as smart. I was always a smart kid. I just didn't want to do my homework, things like that, like these life
Yeah.
lessons. So I would have told myself to like, this is what I would have said for real, like live in the present, enjoy this space, enjoy your youthful body, enjoy being young, enjoy like having the opportunity to see your friends more often because you ain't got no kids. Like enjoy this, like really,
Yeah.
really hone into this. And then the other thing I would say is invest in money, like invest in Bitcoin or
Yeah.
something, like so I can be rich right now.
Big yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I don't
right.
know, just put some money in some stock or something, like.
Yeah.
But I think I definitely would have gave myself that life lesson and say, this is the present, like this is not the hardest part of your life. And then
Mhm.
I think about that now. It's like this is probably gonna be a cycle. Like I'm thinking like this is probably the hardest time of my life. And then I'm gonna look back on this like 10 years later and be like, yo, remember when, my kids still lived in the house and they're around me all the time. I miss them. I'm old now. Like it's so
Mhm.
weird how that happens. Like every time you look back, you have this nostalgic feeling. Well, most times, still, people that, as we talked about with Maya Angelou, they probably had some form of trauma or something like that. But
Yeah.
like, I really would have told myself, my younger 18 self, to like enjoy this, like enjoy where you are.
Mhm.
Don't always be in such a hurry to be older.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I would have told myself. And
Yeah.
also would have told myself to invest in so I can be rich. like put some
Yeah, that
money
would
away. Don't buy all
yeah.
that crap they used to buy. Like, like
Yeah.
I used to
You
buy
don't
some of
need
these
that.
Oh, I used to buy so much crap from Walmart, like like those like $5 movies. I just wasted so much money on crap. Like I don't have none of the stuff I bought when I was 18. Like none of that stuff.
Totally.
I
I
wasted
know.
so much money, like
I know.
on materials that I don't have these materials anymore. So I think that would
And
have been
probably
another thing
don't
too.
care either. Like you could care less. Like obviously if you cared about them, you'd still have them,
Yeah, I got some CDs. I got like I randomly got CDs. I got a CD player, and I was like, listening to it the other day. I was like, it's pretty dope. But at the same time, I can listen to any song I want on my phone. Like
I know.
I didn't know that.
It,
Like I didn't look in the future and say, wow, this is gonna be outdated. So I don't
I
know,
know.
but
Huh. I love
I
that.
definitely would have that mindfulness, that presence, that this is this is this is the best time ever. And then every time you do that, you're gonna realize that things change, but not everything is as hard as you thought it was.
Yeah.
So
And I think in some ways, every chapter and experiences of our lives are the best in some ways, but they also have like their
challenges.
scars and their challenges and all that. But I do think that every season is like, wow, this is amazing. Like I don't have this, but I do have this. And then the next chapter is like, well, I don't have this, but I do have this. And it's like every
I mean,
chapter you kind of swap something for another.
I remember like everything. Like I remember when we had one kid. Oh, this is so tough.
Yeah.
And then you're like, when you have two kids, you're like, wow, at least we could have traded off. Like you just don't remember. You really like you think everything is the hardest till a new transition, and then you
Yes.
realize, wow, that wasn't as difficult as certain things. So I
Right.
find that always interesting.
Yeah. Or how about like if you do, when you're like, okay, so let's say you're older and you have all this money now, but then you're like, you're too old and tired to go do anything with it. It's like,
There it
well,
is.
oh,
There
bummer.
it is. Right. Exactly. So it's always, I don't think, I think that's the way of the world. And I think that's why I think kind of tying it back to your topic of gratitude, like I really, really got to focus on like this moment presently is there's so many things to be grateful for because then think
Mhm.
about later, like I should have been more grateful for my health when I had a younger body. So
Right. Right.
I think that ties into that gratitude, just telling my younger self, like, be happy with your, beat up car and being able to see your friends every day in the hallways in high school, because you
Yeah.
might not get to see him as, my best friend lives in Idaho. Like
Mm.
I live in Virginia, he lives in Idaho. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine just like I got to see my best friend every day.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to see him, once or twice a year. That's crazy.
Right. I know.
Like,
Yeah. But at the
that's
time,
really
you don't
dope.
think you just take it all for granted. Like we all
No,
just take it for granted. Like, oh, this is going to be like the rest of my life. No,
no,
it's not.
no,
Yeah.
no. So that was
Hmm.
great, man. That was a good question.
Thank you.
So now this is the part of the show. Shout outs. I mean, this has been a great episode. I'm really glad we got connected. We're gonna stay in touch. You got my email. I definitely want to send me
Yes.
those those articles about kindness in kids. I would love to read it.
Yeah.
But now that this is the part of the show called shout outs and plugs. So, please feel free to show love to anyone you want to show love to. And then plugs. These are ways that people can stay connected with you, social media if you want to share things that you're
Sure.
working on. This is your stage, your platform. So shout outs and plugs.
Sure. Okay. So shout outs first. I mean, to my family, because what you don't know right now is that my husband took all four of the kids out to dinner tonight so that I had the house quiet. So, he's out to dinner with them because I was like,
MVP.
babe, come on. And so a huge shout out to him because he, again, just so supportive after working all day. He took these little kiddos out and it's going to be mayhem, I'm sure. So just for the support of my family and my kiddos, they're just amazing. And they're like such sweet little cheerleaders. Um, and my parents who are just have always been so supportive and have always just been like, just go for it, go big. Um, Plugs. I mean, my book is on Amazon. Well, you can find it all sorts of places. It's Sunroofs and Shoeboxes. And a lot of my articles are on my website. My website's thesweetlife.co. So not .com, .co. So The Sweet Life. And actually, the Kind Kids, How to Raise Kind Kids is on that on my website. You also can find me on Instagram at Jamie Lee Matthews, and Facebook. The Sweet Life Co. is my Facebook page. And I'm always posting my articles on all my social media platforms so that everyone has resources available to them. I am a writing machine at this point. So I am writing and publishing articles all the time. So if you want, articles or insights, even upcoming, things to do for Valentine's Day with your kids that are meaningful, I've got articles coming out about that too. So those are all the places that you can find me.
That's excellent. I was actually, while you were talking, I looked up your Facebook, and I'm going to join the group. And I think
Oh, good.
I'm really so glad that we got connected, the Sweet Life
Me
Co.
too.
So I'll make sure to
Yeah.
join that and support you and
Thank
follow your
you.
journey. And we'll definitely stay in touch.
Vice
Um,
versa. Yeah.
So thank you so much. All the listeners, please, check out Sunroofs and Shoeboxes, her book. I'll put the link to that as well in the show notes on Amazon, as well as her website. Please check it out. I'm really
Thank
looking
you.
forward to it. I might, get the Audible, or not the Audible, I'm gonna get the book on my phone so I can read that on the go. So definitely got a
Perfect.
new supporter, a new fan right here. Positive Filter listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your family member and friends. This is how we show love and spread the podcast. If you want to call the hotline, it's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Sometimes I put those voicemails at the beginning of my shows. Miss Jamie, this has been a great episode. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.